Hey everybody, this is Felicia with The Book is Done. I am back with another book review. Like I said, I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. The next one that I am going to be talking about, Richard Paul Evans. Let's go. Noel Street. This is a series. This is a series. They all aren't related, but it is like Noel themed, and so, or they have Noel in the title. So he has the Noel Diary, the Noel Stranger, the Noel Street, or Noel Street, and then he has another Noel. I forgot. I think I talked about it before. Um, this one, this one. That one. Of course, it's due. It's during the holidays. It starts off. Almost all of his books starts off where the main character kind of looks back and is like, "Let me tell you about a story that I lived through or that I experienced just a few years ago, or when I was younger, or whatever the case may be." This is no different. This starts off with a character whose name is Ellie. I think she's in her 70s now. Um, and it takes you back to 1975. Um, Ellie is in, I will say, Richard Paul Evans is not in all of his books where he mentions race. But when he does, he'll either tell you, or like eventually, or he'll just come out and say, this is a Caucasian woman, this is African American man, whatever. So, just in the excerpt, or just like in a preview of the overview of what the book is about, it says the year is 1975. Ellie Steen, a single mother who is supporting herself and her 6-year-old biracial son, Dylan. So, off rip, it tells you just what it is. 1975, single mother, biracial child, doing it on her own. Superstar. Superstar. So, it goes back to saying how she came across one of her most unexpected blessings during that time. So, again, 1975, based in the United States, based in Utah. She lives in Utah. Almost all of Richard Paul, the ones that I've read so far, they're somewhere in Utah, somewhere in Utah, and so this is no different. Based in Utah, she is a Caucasian woman who has a biracial son, 6 years old, in the 70s. Wasn't the greatest time for people of color, and not just black people, but just all people of color. So, whether it was Chinese Americans, Native Americans, people who are of Hispanic descent, Canadian descent, um, Japanese descent, like it was not a time to be alive. Okay, it was not like how they say that saying now. Oh, it's a time to be alive. No, you had to go through it. Not to say that you had to go through it, you went through it, unfortunately. So, um, she was married. Her husband was an African American man. He was killed in action. He was in service and he was killed. So, she's trying to gather her bearings. Her family did not approve of her relationship. They did not approve. She had to sneak off to go get married because she was like, you know what, I love him. If you can't respect that, I love you, but I'm gonna be over here with my husband. Okay, with my husband. And so it wasn't that she was going against her parents' wishes. She was of age, young, but she was of age. She was like 18, 19. But still, they knew what they wanted. They knew um, the hardships, some of the hardships that they would endure, since again it was the 70s, um, late 60s, early 70s, because they got married. Let's see, the little boy was 6. They got married 7 years prior. So 75, so what is it? I can't do math right now. 1968, 67. Yeah, 1967. So, biracial couple in the 1960s in the United States, definitely a scary time. And so they were just like, love wins. Love wins all. So they ended up getting married. They move. It's a war that started. He gets signed up. Or, the selective service is real. And so He had to sign up. She didn't want him to go. He was like, I gotta go and fight for our country. So he goes, he gets killed. I think like maybe a few weeks after he was killed, she learned that she was pregnant with their child. So that's how that came to be. So she is in Utah trying to make ends meet, and it starts off with her car just she's having car troubles. And she was, I think, on the way to take her son to school, car trouble, and God bless him. The mechanic, he was someone of Italian descent, and it was his shop, like small town Utah, and so people look out for each other. I've had this happen on so many occasions, so that's why I said God bless, like God send. A mechanic who was just looking out. He knew that she was a single mom, knew that she was doing her best. He was like, this is what's going on with your car. It is gonna cost almost $1,000, but family discount. Family, I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you, no problem. So he swamped at work, and he hired this new person named William. So William, working on the cars thing, he had just came back from service, so Vietnam, I believe. And so they meet, and he's like, I'm swamped, so he's gonna work on your car for you. It's only gonna take like a day or two. He got you covered, promise you. So she's like, okay, fine. So she works at a diner, and while she's at the diner, there's like this whole big commotion outside, where it's like the police are being called. It's this man that's like, they made it seem like he was pinned up under his car, but he was up under his car. So they were just like, what the what? So she walks outside. She sees the person who's up under the car. His name is William, or the mechanic that's at the shop. So she was just like, hey, what you doing up under this car? Like, what's happening? He was having, not to say an out of body experience, but a flashback. A sound triggered him as to where he thought he was back in the war. So he gets out the car. He thinks that they're getting ready to have like a bomb that's getting ready to blow up, and he's hiding up under his car, like he's trying to shield himself and shield his people by being up under this car. And the policeman, he's of African American descent, and so, not to say that they're like typically like they're trying to stereotype him, but they're just like, there is this man in the middle of the intersection, in the middle of town, under his car. What the what? So Ellie goes outside and was like, hey, like two of the police officers, they were frequents in the diner. So they see her, and she's like, hey, I know him. He's working on my car. Like, he's a mechanic working on my car. Let me just talk to him and see what's going on. Because she knew what's going on. Being that she's military, she was just being led, to just be nice. And so she gets down on the ground, and she was like, hey, this is Ellie. You're working on my car. Is everything okay? And in his mind, he's back across seas. And so she was like, how about I get you some coffee? How about we talk about this over coffee? I don't know what it was, but it snapped him out of it. They got him from under the car. They took him down to the station, checked him out, made sure everything was on the up and up. And that's just what it was. So the next day, the police come in and tell her about it. And she was just like, okay, I get it. My husband was military, so, and the police got it too. Like, they weren't just like, oh, it's a black man who's causing trouble. No, it wasn't that. They knew that something wasn't right. And even when they spoke to his boss, Renato, at the mechanic shop, he was just like, yeah, he was in the service. Sometimes things can trigger him. So he was good. So Ellie and this gentleman, she invites him into the diner. They eat or whatnot, and he was like, thank you for what you did for me. And she was like, I just offered you a cup of coffee. Like, I wasn't trying to do anything. I just wanted you to be okay. So he was like, I really thank you for your kindness. So the days go by. I think it's like 2 or 3 days later. Her car is fixed, and she's dreading going to pick it up. Like, they give her a loaner car, but she goes to the shop because she's returning this loaner car. And she's scared to hear what the total is, because, they are like paycheck to paycheck for real. And so he was like, you only owe like $4 tax. I don't know. But she was just like, But you told me like $1,000. He was like, it's been paid for. She was like, what about the labor? It's been paid for. And yeah, she didn't owe anything. And so she was like, how? Like, I'm grateful, but how? And she was like, William paid for it. William paid for everything. And she was in tears. I was in tears at this time because I've had that happen to me where someone just paid for all of our repairs. And so I get it. So that was the first time I shed some tears. I was like, man, this is amazing. And so she was like, well, I have to thank him some way, somehow. Where is he? And he said, he's not here. He's sick. He's at home sick. So she goes to where he is. She goes in, finds this man like on death's doorstep, like legit, total 360, excuse me, from what it was 2 days before. And he was sick. I mean, no insurance, no, he didn't have any family here. Like, he had just arrived in town, so he didn't know anybody. So she was like, do you have something to eat? He couldn't even talk. Like, he was just weak. He was dehydrated. I think it was like a really bad case of the flu. So, in all things, she nurses him back to health. She goes back home. She tells her babysitter, look here, I am the man who fixed our car. He's sick. He doesn't have anyone. I'm going to cook him something. And it wasn't like in a sexual type way or anything. Like, she genuinely wanted to be sure he was okay. And so the babysitter was like, do what you need to do. Me and friend are fine. Her son, we're fine. Go and do what you need to do. So she goes. She makes sure that he's clean, he's bathed, he's fed. Just heart pull stuff. Something I totally would have done without question. And so, he gets back to health and things of that nature. And then they end up getting close. She meets the son, or he meets the son, and that's like the majority of the story. I'm not gonna give away the gold nuggets, but baby, towards the end, my tears were flowing. You hear me? Just because it was, whew, it was one moment because, and I forgot to say this, throughout like towards the beginning to the middle, the little boy knows that he's different. He's the only person of color in town, period. Like, out of 1,000 some people, he's the only one that looks different. He's the only black boy. And so, and that trips me out because it's like, if someone is biracial, they look at the person's skin and be like, oh, well, that person's this. You know what I mean? And granted, because of the skin, you have a lot of biracial people who don't look one or the other of the race of their parents. Like, they just, as some people say, they fit in. It's all dumb to me. Like, we're humans. It's just dumb. So, naturally, he was darker than those of Caucasian descent. So this older woman, she was a frequent that came into the diner. They called her the ketchup lady because she puts ketchup on everything, like drenches everything with ketchup. This woman, and this was one of the parts where I was so mad I was shaking. I had to calm down. But she something something happened. I want to say either the school was closed or something happened. I think the babysitter was sick and she couldn't watch her son Dylan, and so she had to bring Dylan to the restaurant. So naturally, she's still working. She's serving tables, and Dylan is at a table. He's 6 years old. He's minding his business, and he's playing. And the ketchup lady comes in, and everybody's like, "Oh Lord, here go the ketchup lady." So this woman, ignorant, do you hear me? Of Caucasian descent. Like I said, the whole town is white, right? Caucasian. So she comes in and she says, who is that little N boy over there? Time out. Time out, boss. Time out. I had to put the book down. Because I was like, this is a book. Woosah. Even though this is real, like, these things happen. Words were said. If you don't know what the N word is, I'm not going to say it. It's a very derogatory term towards people of color. But it just wasn't nice. Little boy at that. And so the little boy don't know what that is. He doesn't know what that term is. Apparently he knows that it's directed towards him, because she was like, who is that little boy over there? So William just so happens to come into the restaurant, and he was like, First of all, what you will not do is be disrespectful. This is a kid. This is a little boy. And then on top of that, I'm an African American man. You will not be using that language up in here. And so then that's when the mama, that's when Ellie comes. She's shaking. She mad. So she was like, that little boy. Oh, no, he came. William came and said that after Ellie. So as soon as Ellie heard it, she was like, that boy that you are referring to is my son. And you need to get up and go. So that's when William comes. He says something. The owner of the restaurant says something like, Ketchup Lady had to go. Ketchup Lady would have got these hands. You understand? Like, she would have. The ignorance. And what's crazy is that this stuff still goes on today. But that's a whole different. Wish you would come at me with that term. Just ignorance. You can't entertain ignorance. You just kill it with kindness, yes. You have to before you put your hands on somebody, because I was shaking. I was like, this is a little boy. He's 6. He has no idea. He's questioning his identity. He knows he's different. Really? So, in all of that, this book had me in my feels. Because I knew it was going to be heavy. When I see something that says biracial, I know it's going to be something that's where you kind of have to get your bearings. You have to gather your bearings and kind of get yourself together, because it's like you're trying to prep yourself for what you're getting ready to read, but some things you are just not prepared for. Like with that term that she said, never in any of his books that I've read so far with Richard Paul Evans have I read that term. And so it's been authors that with their work, I've stopped reading their books, even though it wasn't like in a discriminatory manner or anything like that. When you use the term loosely, just a little too loosely, just a little too comfortable in a good bit of your works, regardless of when the books came out, I can't handle it. Like, I can't. Don't get me wrong. Like, when I was younger, like when I was in 6th grade and stuff, we had to read books like Raisin in the Sun, Native Son, Black Boy. Even though Roots is out there, I have a copy of Roots. I've never read Roots. I already know it's about the slavery. I can't deal with that. I can, but no. And what's crazy is that it's 2025 and still dealing with it in some way, shape, or form. Nah, bro. Like, no, that's a separate video. So, in this book, you're dealing with biracial child. You're dealing with, interracial relationship. You're dealing with ignorance, as it was back in the 60s and 70s. But you still find love at the end of it all. You know what I mean? Like, it just, how he tied this book together with William and Ellie, and just, I was legit crying. Legit. I wasn't like, I wasn't like that, but it was just, the tears wouldn't stop flowing for about a good 5 minutes. Like, even when I dabbed, it was still coming. It was to the point where I just had to let it flow. Beautiful book. Beautiful book. So, this Noel Street, Richard Paul Evans, do it, read it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. This is Felicia with The Book Is Done, and I'm out. Bye, y'all.